Hello and welcome to another episode of GothamSound.tv. Taking the glasses off for this intro, I am here with Andrew from Deity. Andrew, it is so good to see you. Thank you for joining us. I am super excited. Number one, we have the shipping version of the Theos wireless. You know, now that it's shipping, tell us where we're at with the Theos. What are the features?
Absolutely. I mean, it's not the traditional method for interacting with gear like this. More often than not, I know people who are watching at home are probably used to a top-down style receiver, so that once it goes in your bag, you're always getting visual information from it. This is a system that is more app-driven in its current ergonomic form because that screen is kind of going to be hidden in your sound bag or on your cart. You're going to be laying it flat on the shelf and you're not going to be able to see that screen. So all of a sudden, things like a tablet or a phone kind of now become your primary screen. And if you're not used to that, it can take a little bit getting used to in the first day or two. But we found that folks that have made that kind of switch like to see everything on one bigger screen versus a half dozen little small screens that they're always having to look down into in their sound bag.
Yeah, I can see that, and it's interesting because the uh, I guess a modern sound bag will have a tablet holder. That's or an iPhone holder,
Right.
whatever. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's something that I think this generation of starting sound mixers expect. This is something that they want. They want apps connected to all the devices. Whereas, it wasn't but just 5 years ago, it was more of a monitoring tool. When we think about the first real big app that was adopted by the wide variety of folks, which is Wingman, it was more for metadata entry and some monitoring. Now, with, all the different devices out there, everyone gives you almost full menu control, and that's what we did here as well. So it just feels more natural to the folks that are getting started now, especially at this kind of a price point.
Cool. All right, but let's start with the basics. So, what is Theos Digital Wireless?
So Theos Digital Wireless is our new UHF ecosystem. And the reason why we're calling it that versus this particular kit being Theos, this is just our two-channel kit of Theos. But Theos is going to be our new foray into all things wireless going forward. So that means certain things like 590 to 960 is going to be kind of a pillar that all of our wireless is going to operate on going forward. Things like the Citus Audio app and its integration with these devices, all of that are going to be these pillar ideas that intermod, connectivity, cross compatibility, backwards compatibility with this ecosystem is what our new goal is for everything going forward into the future. And that is our idea of what Theos is. It's a new way to look at it in the sense that it is wireless, but because we also make the timecode products, because we make the new PR2 recorder, it also needs to interact with those devices as well. So we also have a chip in here called Bit Connectify that is doing our timecode handling and wireless syncing with the other devices in our other ecosystems. So there's not just a Theos compatibility that's going to be going forward, but there is a Bit Connectify compatibility layer that's going to be going forward almost exclusively on every device that we start making.
Amazing, and of course, you guys have a long history of app-controlled products in the film and TV industry. So this is not a
Yeah.
new foray for you.
No, yeah. I mean, the company that we spun off from Aperture went back from it almost kind of reminds me of like a little TV remote, but it was a 2.4 omnidirectional remote control that you held in your hand that let you control every light on set up to 16 groups through different combinations of grouping, and you could control tons of things through that TV remote. That then translated into an app that let you control up to 99 lights on a film set. And when we realized the possibility of bringing that kind of interconnectivity on a film set to the sound department, that then I can control every single bit of sound gear on set through a single hub to interact with, we knew that's something that we wanted to really achieve.
And that includes the slate. That includes the
That
timecode
includes the
products.
slate. Yeah, the slate, the TC1, the upcoming PR2, the new DBTX and the D2RX, as well as the new and already announced DLTX that'll be coming out in Q1 of next year, Q1, Q2, something like that. So like we've really started to build this idea that a single hub is what you want. It's kind of like a smart hub for your house. You want everything going into that Alexa speaker or into that Google Nest Home kind of product where I can control everything in my house. But we want to build that smart home type functionality to this mobile field production sound world that we live in, so that you aren't getting up from your chair to go do minor things that could easily be pulled up in a tablet.
I love it. In terms of Theos digital wireless, 550 is the bottom. What's the upper limit?
960 is going to be the upper limit. And well, here in the US, what that means for people here at home watching here on Gotham TV is it's going to be 550 to 608, 612 to 614. So it's a little 2 megahertz little bubble right there. 653 to 663, so a little 10 megahertz jump. And then we go down to 902 to 928. So you get 26 megahertz right there in that upper echelon ISM band. And we're reserving the 941 band for the new DLTX, since that's going to require an FCC operator's license.
Excellent. And because this is all through an app ecosystem, as you travel, it configures itself to be legal in whatever country you're in with whatever licensing you have.
Correct. So what's great about this is on our website, if you're curious right now before you go and purchase a kit, if you go to deitymic.com/frequencies, we have a list of 63 countries that we've got the rules and regulations from as to what operations are required, what's the RF power, what frequencies are allowed, as well as we've included what antennas you need to operate in those frequencies. So how long your antenna needs to be cut to for those bands. So if you're traveling and you buy some spares, you already can kind of prep ahead of time to make sure you're doing optimal transmission. So that has it for 63 countries. A lot of countries, though, we have come to realize in research don't publish these numbers, or they don't have these kinds of rules and regulations to begin with. So it's really on the operator to be a good steward of wireless and kind of do best practices. So in a lot of places, like we now have in the Dominican Republic, we just talked to their version of the head of the FCC, but it's not called that. I think it's called something else. We just talked to them through one of our users that bought in the Dominican Republic. And we just opened up the whole the 550 to 960 range for them because they don't have any restrictions. That customer is now having a great time. But if you're doing a travel documentary and you're coming from the US down into the DR for a reality shoot, which a lot of shows now are shooting down there, you're going to have pretty much wide open range of whatever you want. And it's all configured on demand. So you can buy a kit from Gotham, operate in New York, jump over to different bands, best, what's determined in your area in New York. You get that phone call for a travel gig, reality documentary, boom, you're on a plane and you're not changing out, you're not having to rent anything extra. The kit you own is the kit you can travel with.
Awesome. RF output power. What do we have in terms of options on the transmitter?
It's kind of maxed out based on what is allowed here in the US. So in the 550 to 608 range, we're at 100 milliwatts. When you're doing things down in the guard band and duplex gap in that 600 megahertz bands, you're limited to only 20 milliwatts. And then when we go down into the ISM band, the 902 frequencies, those were allowed to go up really high, but we limit you to only 50 milliwatts because that's really kind of what's giving us our best performance in terms of our RF amperage.
And this is a fully digital system. This is a digital modulation.
Completely digital modulation, no companders, no analog transmission in the sense of like we're looking at FM modulation. No, this is all 100% digital modulation, ones and zeros. So when it comes to determining the signal from the background RF, we can actually operate on a much more narrower signal to noise ratio with our signal to the background RF noise of an environment. So you're not having to do things like crank the gain on your transmitter to near clipping levels just to get a better SNR. You're not having to do things like run it up to 100 milliwatts to get a nice 18 dB separation. That's not really needed. You can get a much smaller, narrower deviation from your noise signal. And if it's ones, if it's zeros, we're decoding it. And we've gotten to the point where I think my best test was in the duplex gap. Self noise of the environment was like negative 109 dBm. Our signal didn't drop until it dropped down to like, I think it was like negative 98 dBm
Mm.
on our meters.
Wow.
So like just a 10 dB
Separation. Yeah.
separation. And that's when it finally broke the signal.
Wow.
So you're not needing those gigantic SNRs like you used to with the old analog stuff.
How is it powered, and what can one expect from battery life?
I've got it loaded up with the two Deity lithium AA batteries. These are single-use AA's, 1.5 volt, 3,000 milliamp hour batteries. With this in the transmitter set to 10 milliwatts, because remember, it's digital. We don't need to be as powerful. We're getting nearly 15 hours of runtime.
Huh.
So fantastic runtime. Yeah, it's pretty cool. We've got a time lapse of it next to one of our slates. Just the slates counting up. We ran a time lapse and we waited till the thing finally died. And we were like, cool, what's the time, on the slate? It's like 14 hours and 50 minutes.
So hopefully past lunch.
Really good runtime
Yeah.
on lithium AA's. On nickel metal hydrides, I think we're getting just north of 10 hours. So pretty good day for the average user on a film set. Definitely to lunch and then some. So if you're running a little bit later behind, you're still good to go. On alkalines, I think we're looking at around 8 hours of runtime. So again, solid runtime, get you the lunch on these kinds of productions.
How long have you guys made AA lithiums for?
So what we did was, we don't actually make these. We're not going to even like pretend that what we would do is make these. We found a distributor of lithium AA batteries that didn't have global export. They were a domestic brand only. So we partnered with a company that's been around, I think they've been around for like 20 plus years, making all sorts of batteries domestically in China. They made lithium AA batteries. And we were like, look, you don't have any presence globally. We do. We need batteries, and our devices need long battery life. And while lithium AA's, we can talk back and forth about the ethics of it. Some productions, though, they want to mic up in the morning, and you don't get access to the body pack for the rest of the day. We call those shows reality TV. So in that regards, there's still some productions that need good quality lithium AA batteries, and we wanted to make something like that. And that's why it's included in the kit, so you can get a taste for what that offers. But they also are purchased separately. So if you want to, you can get an 8-pack for about $15 from your local dealer.
That's very reasonable. That's great.
And on top of that, the transmitter and the receiver both can be actually powered off USB-C. So if you are wanting to use this as a hop, and you're wanting to put the transmitter in your bag, or if you're wanting to actually mount the receiver up on a bigger camera for camera hop and pull USB power off of like a V-mount or Anton Bauer battery, you can do that as well and pull that off their little camera distro for power and run that all externally, so you don't even need AA batteries.
Huh. Okay, that's fantastic. Yeah, so super flexible, no battery eliminator, and USB-C. Just any you can get that at. I think when I was mixing, the Radio Shack was the common denominator. I suppose Best Buy now or Airport Gift Shop might be another common denominator. Like I can get a power distro pretty much anywhere for that.
Yeah. Well, and here's what's really cool. If you look at our SPD-1 system for power distro, we make a cable called the SPD-HR3U. And that is a Hirose style connector that's compatible with all the Hirose things. So if you have an audio route, or if you've got a Hirose enabled power distro system from another brand, you can use this cable, and it will break it out into 3 USB-C 5-volt connectors on like a little snake or little squid kind of deal. So we can actually technically, on one Hirose connector on an audio route, we can actually power 3 receivers.
Amazing. All right. The other question that comes up a lot with digital modulation, what kind of latency are we looking at?
Sure. So we're looking at 6.3 milliseconds of latency. So it's a consistent latency. It's not a variable, which a lot of people were worried about. It's a consistent latency. So if they're not too far away, if they're really far away, it's all the same. And what's really nice about that is it's actually still faster than what I think most people even realize the speed of sound is in terms of distance.
Yeah.
So at the distance of a boom pole that you're using on a film set, the sound from the actor to you is actually going to be longer than it is than wirelessly.
Right.
So the actual latency, I know 6 sounds significantly more than other systems. It's still well within tolerance of like what's audibly recognized as even being out of sync.
Yes, it's a foot per millisecond. I realize that, you get into issues when you're mixing hardwired and wireless, but there are input delays. Certainly, if your boom was also wireless to the same system, then everything's hitting the
Yeah.
mixer at the same time aligned. And yeah, foot per millisecond. So a conversation with somebody 6 feet away, is a 6 millisecond delay. So.
Right.
All right. The other thing that strikes me too is, unlike other wireless microphone specs, they start at 470, and I think that one could say, well, that I really want that spectrum. I will just say, in my experience, 470 is really very, very right on the edge of the business band 2A radios that are used on set. And I think
Oh, and those things are like
public
5
safety.
watts sometimes.
Oh yeah, and 470 to 512 is filled in certain cities with business band radios and public safety. So from my perspective, certainly, selling this stuff, I'm looking forward to not dealing with a lot of support calls around that, because I imagine the receiver's relatively insensitive to those frequencies.
Yeah, I mean, what we've got going on is there is some filtering in there to kind of make it so that things below 550 aren't too close. And really, walkie-talkies, that stuff, now you're talking good 70
Yeah.
megahertz, hopefully, separation. So you're not going to even get a lot of their harmonic splash. Um, I think a lot of people we've see this when we were in Atlanta at the expo down there.
Hmm.
A lot of people were asking questions about, well, you can't go above 600, and the answer is, yeah, you can. There's just these little limitations of the 20 milliwatts in the 600 and some in down in the 900s as well. Like you have to have an FCC license for certain bands. But for the most part, 902 to 928 is pretty open. I just got a text message this morning from someone who's reviewing a kit. They ran a scan. They're doing a reality show up in St. Paul, and he's like, "This is bare. This is
Yeah.
empty." And I'm
Yeah.
like, "Yeah." For the majority of folks who aren't running in a hospital, who aren't running on a set where they have motorized camera rigs that are legacy camera rigs that haven't moved over to 2.4 yet, that are still in the 900s, those are the only chances you're going to really run into a lot of stuff in that 900 band. A lot of folks are going to have a great time in the 900s or in the duplex gap
Hmm.
and not run into a lot of interference. I don't think people really want 470. They just want more bandwidth, and they really want clean bandwidth.
Yes.
So that's kind of what the trade-off was. We'd rather give you a little bit less bandwidth. I think it's technically like 36 megahertz above 600, but it's really clean bandwidth.
Yeah.
And that's a lot more usable than trying to fight for your space down in the 400s.
And unlike some other products in 902 to 928 that would be frequency hopping, and you're taking up the whole band, and now you have potential to interfere with other users in that space, it's still, the modulation scheme for wireless mic. So you're just taking a little sliver of
Yeah.
it.
You're taking about 200 kilohertz, yeah.
Yeah.
And then channel spacing is only 700 kilohertz.
Mhm.
So something like duplex gap, which is 10 megahertz, we can fit, I think it's like 12 or 13 channels in the duplex gap, which should be more than enough for most people who are running a small ENG bag.
Do these transmitters record? Is that determined by the app? How does that work?
So US purchased units do not transmit and record.
Mhm.
They will never transmit and record even when taken outside of the United States. That's so that we can accommodate the rules and regulations of the United States system,
Mhm.
as well as just make sure that we're being good stewards to other people out there. International sold units will record and transmit internationally, but when they are brought into the US, they will comply with US rules and regulations and temporarily become a US unit well in the GPS coordinates of the United States.
Understood.
To further that, though, regarding the United States units, sold units, operated units, whichever, you still have access to the 32-bit float recorder with timecode. It's just an either or situation. And we have found that a lot of people I know are bummed about this. They're like, oh, I wish I could do both. Sure. But in reality, what you really want is wireless that doesn't fail, because you don't really want to actually rely on the backup, right? I mean, at the end of the day, you bought wireless because you wanted wireless. So what we've done, because we knew this was probably going to end up being the situation, we worked really hard, like adding the antenna diversity to the receiver to make it so that even though it's a small compact design, it still receives that signal reliably really far away.
Yeah, and let's talk about what is being sold. So I have before me the two-channel, dual-channel system. It's got two transmitters, and it's got one receiver that's receiving both of those transmitters. And so that's the standard kit. Is that right?
Yeah, that's our standard two-pack kit. That's, the best value you could say out there. That said, though, you can of course transmit from one transmitter to multiple receivers. And through stores like Gotham, you can buy individual pieces as well. So if you want to build out something like a camera hop system or a auxiliary IFB system where you want to use the B output for headphone jack, you can do that as well. So you can mix and match however you want, because it's just like a traditional UHF wireless system that you're used to.
Aha. Okay. Well, now we're going to segue into a kind of unboxing and what comes in the kit and help Peter learn new gear segment. So what comes in the box are the two-channel receiver and two transmitters. This particular kit comes with a pretty great hard case, which is amazing.
Yeah, waterproof, dust-proof, kind of Pelly style case. We wanted to make sure people get that extra value.
Yeah, it's really it's quite great. Yeah. Talk me through if you don't mind.
Sure. So the first thing you're greeted with here is, of course, your transmitters and your receivers. In those white pouches, though, so we'll go right to the white pouches, this is 12 pre-cut antennas for the user to choose from. So if you want to use the 550, the 608 band, you'll use the red antennas. Right there, you've got the blue ones in your hands. Those are for the 900 band.
Mm-hmm.
And you'll notice, as I open this up with you, they're all labeled. So
Yeah.
the user does not have to worry about getting confused. And if you need replacement antennas, we already have cuttable replacement antennas available from dealers like Gotham that you can order from. So, but you come with 12 antennas to start with. So no matter what band you choose from, you've got optimal transmission and receiving stuff going on.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm going to just pop one of the elbow antennas on our receiver. That way, so if we go on a DSLR or mirrorless camera, we can always bend those elbows antennas up so they're not in the operator's face.
So just to be clear, they're the same antenna frequency band, but one.
Yep.
You are generous to give one pair that's got elbows and one that's straight.
Correct. Yeah, because we knew going on top of a lot of cameras, if you're using them as hops or just you're an owner operator out there needing to do videography work, you don't want these poking you in the face as you're trying to operate your camera.
Mm-hmm.
So we just like elbow antennas. Why not?
Yeah, that's really sweet, actually.
So you've got the receiver in your hands.
Mm-hmm.
Next thing you know, there's a little hoop, kind of loop hoop kind of thing at the top of this tray. Lift that up, and you can pull that top tray out. And underneath, you're going to find a ton of goodies that you're going to be able to enjoy.
Uh-huh.
Like, it already comes with 6 lithium AA batteries for your first day of operation, so you get maximum battery life. Really enjoy the kit. You've got up there in the upper right-hand pocket also a cold shoe adapter plate for the receiver. This one's kind of always fun to kind of do because it's easy to put on, and I've used a ton of these from different brands, and we just wanted to make this the easiest process possible. And then also you're going to see your belt clip hoops.
Mm-hmm.
Hoops, loops, clips. They're wires, so I really don't know if you can call it a clip.
I like
Right?
hoop. Yeah.
I don't know. It's a hoop. And then I'm going to put the belt clip on my receiver
Can
just
I
so I can
just
demonstrate.
can I just tell you that
Yeah.
this is either like Christmas or this is all the nights of Hanukkah. This is, or it could be both, I guess. But this is really
I
great.
mean, yeah, it's one of those things that we try to give the best value to the customer. When I started in sound mixing, filmmaking, I never bought anything new. Every gear I ever bought in my life was used,
Mm-hmm.
either on Craigslist or Facebook Marketplace or something in the middle.
Mm-hmm.
And when we started Deity, I always wanted to make sure when the customer's buying something new, they're going to get an experience unlike anyone else offers because they've spent hard-earned money on this kind of stuff. And that's just, something goofy that we've always kind of done internally is just made sure the customer is really opening up something that's worth their money.
I had to say I genuinely appreciate it, and I feel like I am covered for like 99% of the situations that I could think of with what's in this kit.
Absolutely.
And that, like
Absolutely.
that actually feels really, really good. Like I appreciate that, it's that you've included enough batteries to get me going. I appreciated all of the output cables that I could want.
2 XLR for
Yeah,
mono, or if you're going into mirrorless camera, you got that TRS, the locking TRS.
yeah.
The USB-C cable that you just unwrapped in there, I see it's already unwrapped.
Mm-hmm.
That's for data transfer off the actual recorder,
Mm-hmm.
or if you are trying to use the receiver as a digital audio input into a computer.
I want to give special shout out to that. I really appreciate that option that we can use this directly into a computer. I presume it shows up as a class compliant USB interface, audio interface.
Plug and play, no drivers required. Yeah.
iPhone, it'll work with anything basically.
Yeah.
Can I ask a question? Just my own curiosity. This just came up with another customer. Is it only sending audio? Can the headphone out take a return?
From my understanding, it's only sending audio, so you would still want to pair some generic Bluetooth. So like right now, I've got it. I've got my mic going in, but I'm using a Bluetooth earbud for the monitoring of the back.
Got it.
Which kind of keeps it a little bit more mobile than trying to do anything else.
Yes. Absolutely. I mean, this is a very, very complete kit. I see it comes with 2 lavs, Andrew. Tell me about
It does. So this is our latest version of the WLAV Pro, which we've been making for about 4 years now. Used on a lot of productions out there, like Physical 100 for Netflix,
Mm-hmm.
as well as a bunch of stuff down in Atlanta on the Tyler Perry studios. So this is our latest version of that lavalier that's molded 3.5 millimeter with a new, longer, better improved strain relief. So this lavalier also can be purchased separately. So if you're not a Theos customer, but you want to use it on your other 3.5 millimeter, you can also buy this lavalier separately
Yeah, I
for about
see that.
$120 US.
Yeah, that feels solid. And I have heard from customers that they are, on shows where they know it's going to be a lot of physical activity. This is the lav of choice because it holds up. It's the L&D
It's
is
waterproof.
front layer. I didn't know it was waterproof. That's amazing.
Yeah, the capsule is IP65. So if it's gross, slimy from sweat, or your actor is just getting wet, you can also take it off, throw it in a little distilled water, throw it in some rubbing alcohol, clean off that lavalier head and capsule to make sure you're still getting great audio, and you're good to go. You don't have to worry about any kind of damage to it. So let's walk you through that those batteries. Let's open the batteries up and we'll power the unit on so we can actually start doing things like running scans, and you can actually see some of what we're talking about right now when it comes to like these other bands that aren't 470 to 550.
Yeah, I was gonna say, look, I always feel funny like saying stuff like this because obviously Gotham sells them, but this really does feel solid. I mean, this is like just in my hands and just the door, and it's not it's not weird.
It's a lot of tooling to get there, and a lot of people thought it was plastic mold injection at NAB. And that's why I made sure that we also had a unanodized aluminum version with the rough cut lines still in there.
But it is really metal. Yeah.
Yeah. So here's what we can do is we can open up that battery door, and then we have the power button on the far left-hand side. So what we'll do is the menu button is on the far right-hand side, so we'll press that once.
Should I power up my transmitter?
Yeah, let's do that.
Okay, I'm going to quickly grab this. I have put the batteries in, and I'm turning on the transmitter. There we go.
Wonderful. Okay, so yeah, the first thing you notice is it saw that you had an SD card already installed.
Yeah.
Inside of both transmitters, and I'll do this on the other one that doesn't have batteries, up underneath is the SD card. Yeah, up underneath there is a hidden compartment. And it comes pre-installed with a 32 gigabyte Kingston card. So not some off-brand, an actual brand you've actually heard from.
I appreciate that, Andrew. Yes, that's great.
Absolutely.
All right. Turn it back on.
So what we can do is we'll go to manual real fast and make sure that at the very least we're starting off with 2 units that are in the same frequency. Because what happens with the Theos system is when I do a scan on the receiver and my transmitter is already on the same current channel as my receiver, it'll get the updated new frequency automatically from my receiver after a scan.
It's 566.0 is my RX1.
Perfect. Okay, so we'll just now make sure the transmitter is set to the same frequency manually. So you'll go into the menu of that transmitter, just set it manually. So you're going to hit menu, frequency, manual. And you're going to dial to that exact number real fast. So 566 point, and I think you said 0.1?
0.0.
0.0, yeah.
Okay.
And this way, when we run our scan from here on out on our device, it'll just automatically update that transmitter.
I see an option to pair.
You want to do that now.
Okay.
So now that you've done that, you can hit pair.
And do I pair on the transmitter or receiver?
Both devices at the same time. So you're going to highlight both.
Okay.
But I think it should already kind of be paired up. You should already be paired because you're on the same frequency. There is some bi-directional communication on our RF signal.
I see that. Okay, so both are paired and both found each other and success. Yes.
Perfect.
Great.
So now on that receiver, what we're going to do is we're going to go back to that top menu where it said scan at the very, very top. And I just want you to hit select, and it's going to automatically start scanning right there on the unit.
So, yeah, it's scanning.
And it's looking real gross a little bit. I'm seeing a lot of background. It's not as gross as us in LA. Yeah, yours isn't too bad. You must have a nice shielded building. Here in a second, it's going to be done. It's going to say automatically select your frequencies. We're not going to do that just yet. Hit the power button, which is also the back button, real fast. And that just allows you to now see what your scan was. So if you want to go back and check all those the gray lines, it's selected and said, these are your best frequencies.
Those are acceptable, the gray lines. Okay.
Those are acceptable. So what we can do here is you can either automatically select using the select menu button on yours. So on the far right-hand side, you can select that frequency, and you could tell it to go to radio 1 or radio 2. You have something paired to radio 1, so you'll select it. And now it's transmitting that frequency over to your paired transmitter.
Success.
And there it did. It automatically did it for you. You don't need to walk over and IR scan or NFC tap or Dweedle tones or anything like that. It just automatically pops it over to the transmitter. But let's actually take a look at the other frequency ranges to kind of show people why those are sometimes something you shouldn't just ignore right off the bat because you've never gone over 608.
Sure.
Once you go over 608, life gets easier. So you saw what that scan looks like. So let's go back a menu. So if you're in the frequency menu, the first thing underneath, by the way, is called spare. So this is something we're really proud of. And you're going to get star ratings for all 10 of those frequencies that it selected for you. Wow. And it's going to either be a 3-star, a 2-star, a 1-star, a 2.5.
Mm-hmm.
And if it's an empty hollow star, that's a half. So that tells you, hey, we have spares for you, but instead of just ranking them pneumatically, we're ranking them by the RF background noise. So if you need midday jump in, instead of running a whole new scan, just grab one of your spare frequencies. That's a good quality spare frequency.
Wow. Is it constantly updating that, or this is just while it
It's
did its
based
thing?
on that initial scan in their
Got it.
morning
Okay.
run
Yeah.
during
Yeah.
setup.
Yep.
But it will update this list if you run more scans later throughout the day.
Got it. Okay. All right.
So the next thing we're going to do
Mhm.
is you could either do a manual, which it's really only needed if you're running things like camera hops and you need multiple things tuning into the same identical frequency.
Got it.
Color in the menu.
Uh-huh.
This is so that you can actually change your radio's color.
Huh.
This comes into play more for identification. So on your app, you go, oh, cool, all my red transmitters are over here, my blue transmitters over there. Or I just want multicolor so it matches all my faders. Because some people, like the Kantar folks, like to have all their multicolor faders. You
Sure.
technically could match all your colors from the transmitter all the way back to your fader. It's just kind of a bonus feature.
It's fun. It's definitely fun. Yeah.
Yeah. And then the last one in this menu, it's off camera. You have to hit one more down, and it's called range. And from here, you can select one of your bands.
And a whole world has opened up. So I was in
Right.
560 to 608, 550 to 608, but I have 614, I have 663, I have 902. What should we check out?
Let's check out the duplex gap because you won't have to swap your antennas because they're roughly good enough for running the duplex gap as well. So that's 653. That's the third one on the list.
Mm-hmm.
And automatically, once you selected that range, your transmitter that's paired will have already switched over ranges too.
Amazing.
So now let's run a brand new scan. So you go back to the top of your list. You'll notice your spare frequencies have grayed out because it doesn't know anything in these frequency ranges. And you're going to run another scan. And this one's going to go much faster because it's only 10 megahertz.
And it's much emptier. Holy crap.
Oh, it's wide open.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's a blessing. Most people don't know about it. Most people aren't operating in it. Sure, you can only have 20 milliwatts in this range for your transmitter, but when you don't have RF to fight,
Yeah, when you have that signal to
20
noise in your
milliwatts
favor.
isn't,
Yeah. Yeah.
it's not a big deal. And you get more battery life at the lower RF output too on your transmitter. It looks like you're sitting at the radio 1.
Yep.
And there it is. It updated.
Amazing.
It's just going back and forth, making sure everything is tuned in and all checks out. And you now set your frequency to a new frequency in the duplex gap, and it's updated on your transmitter.
Talk to me about these LEDs at the top. Tell me what I see. Like,
So-
what does 1 and 2 mean?
Yeah, so what you're seeing is, I believe, off the bat with default, I'm going to plug in a lavalier now into my transmitter. And that green LED is going to blink in time with your VU meter. Because remember, you can't see the VU meters once this is in your bag.
Yeah.
So that green LED is going to blink back and forth based on the actual volume of your transmitter.
Oh, yeah, there it is. Yep. I can.
And then also on your transmitter, now that you have them flat like this, open up the battery bay of your transmitter.
Open up the battery bay of my transmitter. Yeah.
And then tap the power button once.
Uh-huh.
And now you are muted. The LED for audio signal on your transmitter is blinking red to let you know it's muted, but so is the red LED on that channel on your receiver.
Oh, look at that. So
So even if this is buried in a bag, you see a blinking red LED, you go, that person's gone and muted their transmitter on me.
Yeah.
And then from my phone up to 250 feet away, I can unmute them.
Okay. All right.
There's a lot of little nuance ergonomics that we did here that said, this is an ENG kit that is bag ready.
Amazing. And I really do love this. But is there an alternate, like, can I make a different function for that LED right now?
Sure. What would you want it to do? It's all programmable. I'm not kidding. Like
Yeah.
we've got it. You can turn off the LEDs, by the way. If you go into the system settings of these devices, you could turn off the LEDs because some people don't want to have that show up on camera. You know, if the body pack is exposed and you have this bright green flashing LED, it can be distracting. All of this is programmable to us. It's all firmware and software.
I suppose what I would want when there is no paired transmitter on that frequency, I guess if I had that LED a solid red on the receiver.
Okay.
In other words, telling me like, hey, I don't see my pair.
You're out of range.
Yeah, something. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I will text that right now to the engineer.
All right.
That's how it works. That's how it works at Deity.
All right. Well, be careful, Andrew, with my ideas. But yeah, that I love the idea that at a glance, and just I want to make sure that people can see this. I can see this LED whether it's facing up in my bag or on the side of a camera. This is the receiver. And
Yep.
and I imagine that is a deliberate choice, and that speaks
Absolutely.
to the ergonomics. Okay. I feel confident that if I had to show up to set, I could find a clear frequency. I suppose just for the sake of completeness, we should assign a second channel to that second transmitter.
While you're talking about the second transmitter and setting all that up, something I want to say out there is our gain staging is a little bit different than you may be familiar with. Our mindset when we came up with the way that you gain stage, it's very similar how you'd gain stage a hardwire boom. You add gain a little bit here, a little bit there down the chain, or don't add anything later in the chain to make sure you're at unity the whole way through. So in our transmitter, you go like plus 15 dB, and that's going to get you probably where your peaks, your true peaks, are hitting around negative 12 dB in your VU meters. That means the volume of your voice is hitting around negative 20 dB. If in my receiver I set it to 0 dB, I'm sending what we like to call a soft line output. All that means is it's almost like a line. It's much hotter than a mic. Treat it like a line, and you're going to add a little bit of gain back at your mix pre or Zoom F8, around 10 dB of gain at your mix pre inline input. And now all of a sudden you should be unity gain across the whole run when you're using something like the WLAV Pro. So from there, you can tweak your settings plus or minus anywhere in that signal chain. If you have someone who's soft spoken or if they're really loud, dampen it up and down. We really don't suggest going above plus 21 dB in the TX because there is enough dynamic range in the chain. Plus, the cleanness of the mix pre's and the F8s now is so great that just turning that knob a little bit isn't introducing any noise at all.
Awesome. Okay. I think I need to see that a little bit in practice, at least on the transmitter side.
Sure.
I understand the receiver
Absolutely.
side. Let me assign a second frequency to this transmitter.
So all you need to do next is go to the menu. So you're going to hit the far right-hand button.
On the transmitter.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
And let's do it the pairing method this time around.
Sure.
So you're going to hit frequency.
Mm-hmm.
Go down and highlight the word pair.
Mm-hmm.
And then I want you to go into the menu of the receiver.
Mm-hmm.
And you do need to make sure when you're doing this at home, if you're watching, you always need to have your antennas plugged in when you're doing things like pair or kind of setting your frequencies manually. We've had some people say, oh, it doesn't work. They didn't have their antennas plugged in. So you're going to select in the frequency menu, you're going to go down to manual on your receiver, and you're going to highlight to pair number 2.
Mm-hmm.
There you go. Yeah. So once they're both highlighted, hit select on both, and there they are.
Yeah.
And now you're paired. So you could do it manually, dial in your frequency. That's great for camera hops, using these as an IFB auxiliary system, or use the pair method and they're just paired. So there's multiple ways to do that.
It automatically assigned frequencies to the second one.
Yeah, and that probably came from the auto spare channel frequency list because you've already run a scan. So yeah, and it automatically updated because your transmitter, because it was brand new out of the box, probably was in that 550 range. Because the receiver is in the duplex gap, it automatically just said, cool, I'm pairing. I'm also going to take that information of you're in the duplex gap and I'll match it. So yeah, it's pretty automated once it's set up.
Yeah, and I see that I am looking at on the LED. Well, I think it's an OLED screen. I mean, it's very pretty to look at.
It is LCD. It's just a really high resolution LCD.
Wow. All right. Cool. I see RF level and battery level next to the 1 and
Yes.
2. I see battery level on the receiver on the upper far right. I can see my audio modulating on the receiver.
There's more you can see too.
Oh, talk to me.
We just haven't enabled it yet.
Okay.
If you go back to your transmitter,
Mm-hmm.
hold the down key for 2 seconds.
Okay. Down key. Yeah.
There's your time code menu.
Wow. Okay.
And if you were to switch that over to free run instead of auto, so it is just running.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So
is it
I'm gonna
free
go.
run.
It is free. Yeah, free. Free. There we go.
And I'm gonna set it, and I'm setting it all out to 0.
Oh, and I see the frame rate is there as well. The default is PAL, but yeah, sure. Okay, great.
Not everyone's perfect.
Hey, I think they have a strong case that NTSC is the one that screwed it all up, but yeah. But
Never the same color twice.
that's right.
On the international versions, and I believe this is how it works.
Mm-hmm.
I don't get to play with the international versions a whole lot.
Mm.
Next to the microphone icon should be the word TC. So you'll know that you're also in timecode sync on those devices on your receiver. And then that TC will switch over to a record icon when you're transmitting and recording with the international folks. I don't have them. I've got the US models even myself. I don't get to play with the fun ones. So, but there is more that will show up when you go into those kinds of menus. So we have little hotkeys also programmed throughout this to make the process just faster for folks who do want to do onboard stuff.
The way that I've been trained about wireless mics is find a clear frequency first, because if you don't have that, you don't have anything. And then work on the gain staging at the transmitter, which obviously doesn't have to change once you set it for the same person, the same lav. But where's my audio gain in this transmitter?
There's 2 ways to do audio gain on the transmitter.
Mm-hmm.
On your transmitter, when you keep the battery door open, you'll see there's up and down keys, and on your screen, on the home screen, so if you want to go back to the home screen,
Yep.
there's a button, there's a little icon at the bottom that says like probably plus 0 dB.
Yeah,
Or might say plus 6. What's it say? It's below your VU meter, right
mine
below
says
the
plus
negative 20.
24, so it's jacked up.
It's jacked way up. It's probably because we've been tapping the up and down keys for other things,
Yes,
because we're having fun today.
Yes.
So if you tap that down key just once, it'll jump 3 dB up and down.
I see it.
The scale.
Yeah, there it is.
So you can quickly dial the gain in. So if you're a sound utility, just open it up and you're up and down as quick as possible without even jumping into a menu.
Mm-hmm.
And remember, we can also plug headphones into the transmitter itself when checking levels.
Oh, yeah. That's important for people to see. There is a headphone jack right there on the side, which is really clever. Okay.
So I'm going to just mic myself up as poorly as possible, and I'll show up on Facebook's Find the Lavalier later. So if I'm at plus 18, given my voice, and if I talk pretty robustly like I'm doing right now with you guys, I'm hitting my peaks, again, true peaks, negative 12 dB.
Yep.
Volume of my voice is going to be dancing right there above that negative 20 dB. That classic how you kind of gain stage digital audio.
Yeah. I see
because
that.
we can always add and post.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I'm plus 18 dB for my voice. If you're more soft-spoken, maybe it's a little bit more like plus 21. If you're even louder than me, maybe it's only plus 15. We tell people go to plus 15 dB and then dial it up and down from there.
That makes sense. And is there any kind of limiter on the transmitter? Like if I hit 0, am I out of bits, or how should I think about that?
If you hit 0, you're out of bytes. Okay. It's a classic digital kind of system like that. So we try to say peak at negative 12, give yourself that headroom.
Yep.
Just like you would if you were trying to gain stage a digital camcorder or kind of thing.
Sure.
Like a beta cam back in the day when they switched to digital, you would do it that kind of method. So you're really the volume of your voice, the overall spoken, should be hitting that -20 with your peaks at -12. I think a lot of people come from the analog wireless days where everything needs to be just kissing that limiter. You're trying to kiss the limiter as much as possible with every single syllable. And that's just not needing to be the case with digital.
Right. There's no RF power gain to be had by that. There's no RF
Right.
noise or analog noise you're trying to overcome. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, just you can always add it more in the receiver, or as we tell people, in the actual recorder these days, because the EIN of even the cheapest recorders on the market are amazing.
Yes. And for those that are recording via USB, I'm just thinking that's a true digital output from the receiver.
Yeah. Yeah.
Interesting.
So you can be adding that in OBS or in your DAW. So there's other places you can gain stage other than just the transmitter. We find that plus 15, plus 18 is great. Boosting it in post or in your recorder isn't actually a deal breaker because it's not analog. You don't have any kind of RF hiss that you're boosting.
Amazing. All right, we were going to talk about some of the advanced functionality. So just to recap, we have scanned for clear frequency. We have adjusted the input sensitivity of the transmitter. I suppose for completeness, we should look at the output level of the receiver.
Sure. There's a couple of menus here in the receiver we'll take a look at. If we go into, so let's hit that menu button and we'll go down to the very first one, which is called out type.
Yeah.
This is going to allow us to set what kind of output we want because we have two different outputs, A and B. And we don't call it channel 1, channel 2, but A and B because things are routable. So if I select A, you'll see I get an option for RX1, which is going to be like a mono. That's your TRS to XLR cable. And if I go down to RX1, XR2, that's going to put receiver number or channel 1 on the left channel, then receiver 2 on the right channel. And that's going to be for that TRS to TRS cable. So you can get independent recordings into a mirrorless or DSLR camera. So you don't need to carry around a 2-track recorder like an H4n or something like that. You can just do it right into your camera, even a mirrorless camera. We'll select RX1, RX2 because we have both hooked up. Now on the B output, you'll notice we have RX2 and some other things, but there's a third option in the B input. In the B input, you'll see we have RX2, so that's your mono. We have that mixed signal, but then we have something called monitor. Monitor actually means headphone output. So I'm going to select monitor. So now what's happening is out the A output, we have left, right, channel 1, channel 2. And then the B output at a headphone volume through the headphone amplifier, we now have a mirror of whatever's on A. So if we have only RX1 on A, it's only going to be RX1 on the headphone. So if you're running, say, an IFB system, you want to send a mono mix to IFB, you would just set RX1 as A, and you would mirror it, and then the headphones would get plugged into that B output. So it kind of can be used as like an auxiliary IFB system if you need something extra, or if you're trying to do a camera hop and the camera operator also wants to give it a listen, they can do that as well.
Wow, that's super flexible.
Yeah. And then in the next menu, we're going to go back one screen and we're going to go to level. And now out that A output, we have in dB scale in 1 dB increments. I can go up or down. I can go up to plus 10 dB. So a really hot signal, or we can do 0 dB, what we like to call soft line, which is kind of line compatible, line adjacent. And then if you were to go into negative 20 dBu, that's what we like to call mic adjacent. They're not quite what they're supposed to be, which is why we don't call it line or mic. The reason for that is if I do negative 20 and I plug that into a DSLR, given the DSLR's gain capabilities in most DSLR and mirrorless cameras, I'll be able to dial in those levels and get great self-noise performance and still hit true peaks and get a good balance for dynamic range.
Meaning like on a DSLR, you would make the DSLR input sensitivity as least sensitive as possible.
Negative 20.
Right.
Yeah, least sensitive as possible going in because you don't want to overload those mic preamps because they're not line, they are mic, but even then, some of them kind of are like hot mic. So we want to go as sensitive, like least sensitive as possible into mirrorless and into recorders like a Mix Pre, F8, Zoom product, things like that. We want to go in 0 dB, treat it like a line, but don't forget to add a little bit of extra gain.
Got it.
If you go down, you'll notice the B output, it's completely obsolete. We're not using the B output because we selected that monitor, which now means monitor can be highlighted.
Mm-hmm.
And this allows you to go from all the way down from 1 all the way up to 11. So our headphones go to 11.
Clever. Is the hotline level or the maximum output level, can that drive like an Alexa Mini that only has line level inputs?
Yes. Yeah. That should work for that. No problem. It's just not going to be as clean as if you were to add the gain side. But your Alexa Mini, I don't think has any gain whatsoever.
Right.
Even for line, correct?
Yeah, I think it's just one input,
Yeah.
unless they've changed.
So that's one of the use cases, little on the obscure side, but yes, a plus 10 on our receiver should drive an Alexa Mini.
And it happens less and less, but we've had so many customers call and say we need an onboard mic for our Alexa Mini. And it's hard not to get apoplectic at that point from a sound person's point of view. But I digress.
Yeah.
The monitor thing, I found a great workaround for those that don't want to deal with adjusting headphone level in a menu, which is Amazon sells these little $4. They're like stereo mini male to female with a little inline volume control. And so that's like for a camera operator that wants to, quickly mute or turn up the volume. That's a great $3 option. But this is great.
Something else that should be noted. Mm-hmm. So now this comes into one of our hotkeys. Let's go back all the way to our home screen. So we'll double tap that back button.
Okay.
Now that we've selected monitor,
mm-hmm.
if you were to hit your up or down keys, you're adjusting the monitor.
Look at that. Look at that.
So again, for the IFB type folks who are looking at this as an alternative, it's a cheap alternative. It's only $349 per receiver. Pretty good.
Yeah, you have the whole
you could have a cheap little IFB that's all digital. Yeah.
Yeah.
Something else though, if it wasn't turned on for monitor. So let's actually go back to our out type. Mm-hmm. We're going to switch B back to literally anything else.
Yep.
So we'll select B and we'll go back and we'll select RX2, whatever. It doesn't really matter for this demo.
Okay.
Yeah. Got it. Anything but monitor. And we'll go back to that home screen.
Mm-hmm.
Now press and hold the up key.
Uh-huh.
And you jump all the way to adjusting the level for that A output.
Yeah.
If you were to do the exact same for the down key,
yep.
You're jumping all the way into adjusting that level for that B output.
Yep.
And again, triple tap that back button and you're back on the home screen.
Yeah, love it.
So a lot of little hotkeys here for skipping menus.
So forgive me for saying this, but we've gone through enough to give it this like similar functionality, but obviously there's so much more than existing wireless systems on the market.
Sure.
But then there's there's the next level that you can take us to.
Sure. So this is where things can kind of get interesting. And we're going to start with the transmitter side of this business.
Okay.
So I'm going to grab my transmitter.
Mm-hmm.
And just like we did with that holding of the down key, to look at the time code, mm-hmm. Let's press and hold the up key now.
Oh, okay. Yeah, got it. Press and hold the up key. Okay.
Now you're in record mode.
I see that.
And you're still transmitting because you're not recording yet. So if you were to hit select on that far right-hand button, the little check mark, mm-hmm. and you were to hit select, you've now started the recording. And immediately you've stopped transmitting.
I see that. The receiver now no longer responds to the lav. Yeah, okay.
Correct. So now what happens is you're done. You're wanting to transmit again. Whatever you did, you need to transmit. Whatever. If you were to select it again in this menu, it's going to ask you if you want to stop the recording. You have to manually select yes to actually do it in order to prevent any kind of accidents. We have a little breaks in every single thing to make sure nothing accidentally happens.
Mm-hmm.
From here on this home screen, you'll see in the upper left-hand corner how many hours is left on the card. You'll see if your time code is flashing, it means you have not synced time code. If it's solid time code, it means you have synced time code with an external device. The way you do that is two methods. You either can go into the mic input, so the TRS input, feed time code. So if you have a non-Deity time code system, you would grab your device, plug it in, and immediately it will grab the time code. If you, however, have a Deity device, you can either use the sync function on your TC1 or TCSL1, as long as you're in the same group for time code. The way we can check all that is we're going to go back to that time code menu real fast and examine a little bit more in depth. Press the down key for 3 seconds.
Down key for 3 seconds. Okay.
Mm-hmm. So we're in our menu. So the first thing is that auto mode. That auto jam mode, it means you're ready to receive wireless time code or wired time code to jam to that external source.
And that's denoted by the option. A at the bottom, yeah?
No. That's denoted by the mode, and then the first thing at the very top says auto.
Oh, okay.
So if you highlight to that icon, one more up.
Select.
Okay. You'll see that auto. Yeah.
Got it.
So that's auto jam. That's ready to receive time code. Once, that means jam once and then lockdown. So if you're doing a wireless jam and you're in some environment that's super crowded with other TV crews nearby that may be using the Deity's products, you could wirelessly jam your devices using the wireless signal from the TC1. And let's say you're on group A, that A that you mentioned, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you'll highlight down to the A, select the A.
Yep.
And you have groups. So this is kind of a way for us to operate our time code wirelessly next to other people who also may be operating in our same ecosystem. They can be on a different group, or if you're on a reality show and you've got a BTS camera crew coming in, they could also be running real close proximity without interference.
Amazing.
So if everyone's on the A group, which is the default one, but you're worried that someone else may also be in the A group because you're in a press conference, right? You would just either jump to a different frequency, which may and may not help, but that jam once mode means they've received it, and now we're going to ignore any commands for time code we get until we've done a full power cycle.
So the group is not just like some kind of code. The group is actually is also a frequency that I'm switching to within the 2.4 gig.
Yeah, that's in that 2.4 G
Got
frequencies.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay.
So we're trying to make it so that even in the 2.4 world, which is overcrowded, it's very hard to deal with, we're only using it for about 10 seconds at a time when we're doing our wireless syncs. We're not trying to add to the congestion of the 2.4. So the other options is if you were to hardwire jam, you can also select jam if you're not in auto mode. So that button is still there.
Got it.
But in all honesty, if you just leave an auto jam, you're probably fine.
Right.
Frame rates, we have all the major frame rates you know and love. And then in terms of the word set, when you hit set, this allows you to restart the time code from whatever time code you need it to be. So if you need to start at a certain hour, you can do that as well. This is really not that useful on a transmitter because you're only setting it to itself. You're not able to share it elsewhere. That really is only for people who need to maybe use it with like a cell phone or small use cases where you're using the hour of time code also to denote cards or takes or things like that you needed to match it to in an ecosystem where that's the naming methodology.
Got it.
For the most part, you're not going to use the set menu on a transmitter because it's not in sync with anything else. But if you have either wireless sync or hardwire sync, this will definitely talk to the rest of your ecosystem.
My audio is blinking red once per second about. What does that mean?
That means you're probably muted. If I were to go back to your home screen, I bet you hit the power button.
I bet I did too. Yeah. Okay. All right. So now I'm not muted. Okay, good.
One thing you can do, because it's all firmware to us, the buttons are firmware, what they do, how they're mapped is all firmware. Let's real fast
Mhm.
jump into our main menu
Okay.
of our transmitter, and we're going to go all the way down to the system menu.
Oh yeah.
And then we're going to go down one more screen to hotkey.
Mm-hmm.
And you can turn on and turn off all these hotkeys we've been talking about. So if you want to prevent anyone from doing some fiddling,
Yes.
it's an easy way to do that.
That's
So
fantastic.
we give you all access to all aspects.
That's great.
I mean, these things are practically just little computers.
They are very much little computers. Okay, so actually this is a good. This is my next thing because I've now kind of borked the time code on both transmitters. They're both blinking, and that's how I know I've borked them. So how do I sync from the receiver?
So you don't sync from the receiver. The receiver doesn't have any kind of time code. So you're going to either need like a Deity TC1 or TC-SL1 slate to wirelessly sync it or hard jam it. Or if you have like a Deity product or a Betso product, you could use one of theirs to hardwire these to work with your current time code system.
Okay. Got it. Okay. So for those that want to use these or will use these as standalone recorders, to get time code into the equation, they're going to need some third party program, which is fine.
Yeah, and the next thing we're going to look at before we look at the record menu, we're going to look at something called the DID, the Deity ID. Okay. So on the main menu, it's still probably on system, right?
Yep.
It's always going to come back to where you left it.
I like that.
So you're going to go up just a little bit to the Deity ID, the DID.
Oh, I saw it.
Yep. Right there. This is the name of the transmitter. So this is the same name that's going to show up on your receiver next to the frequency number. So you could put the cast member's name. You could call it Talent 1 if you're using it with a lot of different people. Whatever you want to name it, you can select this and name your system. The other reason why we're bringing up the DID now before we go into the record menu is the Deity ID is also what's used to name the WAV file to the micro SD card. So we really suggest people go in and name their transmitters something other than the default so that your micro SD card, if you're using this as a recorder, doesn't have dbtx_001.wave. And then all your files all have the same name. So this DID allows you to have file organization. When you go into post, hand this to a DIT, they know what transmitter this came from right off the bat.
Incredible. I also stumbled across RF output power in the menu, which I thought was useful, and and I saw low cut, which is helpful. So those are great.
Yeah, and the low cut, it's one of those kinds that just have quick jumps, so 75, 100, 150. And then the RF power, depending on what band you are, it's going to be different options. So if you're in the 550 band, it'll be 10, 25, 50, 100.
Got it.
If you're in the duplex gap or the guard band, it's either 10 or 20.
Right, which is where we are now.
And then when you're up in that 902 band, so I'm seeing 10 and 20 in mine as well. And if you're in that 902 band, you'll see just 10, 25, and 50.
Awesome.
So right above RF power, you're going to come across record mode. And this allows you to change your bit rate, so 24 or 32F, 32 float. So we're going to choose 32 float because if you're given the option, why not record at the highest possible, right? It's only 1.25x file size.
The only reason I'm giggling is because, there's going to be a whole bunch of comments. But yes, 32-bit float makes a lot of sense.
And I will take every single one of them on. I'll tell you why. As simple as this.
Go.
You ask a camera operator, do they want to shoot Rec 709 or do they want to shoot RAW?
Yep.
That's it.
Yeah.
Why on earth, if given the option, would I still choose Rec 709?
Yeah, I'm with you.
Any photographer knows you don't shoot master in JPEG.
Especially.
So in audio, this is the closest we have. We're not perfect. It's not flawless. I'm not going to sit here and pitch you that 32-bit float will save your day, but it'll do a lot better.
Especially in the situation where you you don't have direct control of the gain stage
Absolutely.
on a second by second basis. So yes.
A lot of the myths about 32-bit float, like, oh, the post-production team needs to conform it to 24 or do all these extra steps. Not really. I mean, if you've set your gain using the VU meters that we have, and then you record those same VU meters in that 32-bit float space, you're fine. Odds are, if you did your job right because you're a professional, it'll stay within the 24-bit range. But the moment it doesn't, they just need to bring the gain down a little bit. They don't need the batch. They don't need to conform. It's no extra format. In all major NLE software now accepts 32-bit float software like files natively in their import process.
Yeah, it's pretty transparent.
It's a no-brainer.
Yeah, it's pretty transparent.
So there's now 3 options you can select below this. Yeah. Always means as soon as you turn this transmitter on, it's powering in as a recorder and immediately is going to start recording as soon as it's powered on. So for folks who are doing run and gun documentary where it's a very fast pace and you're the cam operator and you're also needing the run audio because it's just one of those, always might be one of the best options for you. But the one I would suggest either is manual, which is kind of what we've been doing right now, or my favorite, sync record. Sync record means as soon as this receives timecode sync, then it starts recording. So if you're a camera operator and you're on one of those types of productions where you're having to do a little bit of everything, and you're like, I can't handle the wireless, I can't do all this extra stuff, I just want pocket recorders. Cool. Hit that timecode sync button on your TC1. It'll sync up to the pocket recorders. They'll engage the recorder with sync with your camera, and you'll be able to run and shoot that interview really quick without having to worry about anything extra.
Wow.
So little functions like this that allow it to just operate as a great transmitter, but also as a great pocket recorder.
That's an incredible value. That's really great. Andrew, I have to say, I feel very confident that I could go on set and use this thanks to your tutelage. I appreciate that, and I appreciate you sharing that. The one thing that I'd love to just briefly go over, we don't have to go into all the details, but I have this smartphone. And I heard there's an app.
So we're on Android, so Android Play Store, Xiaomi and Huawei stores. We're also in the iOS App Store, the iPad App Store, and we'll show up in the App Store on Silicon Macs.
Yes, as compatible. That's amazing. Perfect for sound cards too, if they have that on a sound card.
Oh yeah, you're looking for an app called Citus Audio. This is the same folks for anyone here who's in the videography world who owns some aperture lights who use Citus Link. It's the same fine folks that made our app as well. So you're going to look for that Citus Audio, download it, and you're going to be presented with turning on your Bluetooth and giving it your GPS permissions. One, we use these GPS permissions for, of course, finding out where you are in the world. Two, it's also used in Bluetooth mesh technology, which is what we're doing right now, so we can share up to 20 devices with a single phone. They're fresh out of the box, right? So we need the pair for the first time. You're going to hit that plus button, the big giant one.
And it wants, it's asking me, do I want, oh boy. I've done it now.
Yeah, you want to give it your permissions. So your nearby devices, your locations, and there they all are ready to go. You'll tap on each one you want to add.
I mean, that...
And then at the very bottom, hit add.
That could...
And it's going to take a second to build your mesh network, and it's building it right now. So one of your devices will be what's called the master node, and then you'll have subnodes. And from there, it's automatically, hold on, before you hit...
Oh, sorry.
Yep, the first thing it wants to... No, it's fine. It's going to take a couple of seconds. I'll talk about what just happened, what we just witnessed. It goes, hey, look, I noticed you're in the United States. First time pairing these devices. You should probably configure and pair your transmitters to your receiver. You should probably also run a frequency scan based on your receiver's current frequency setup. And we're going to show you, here it is. Here's the RF environment, and here's the suggested frequencies for these 2 units. Hey, very cool. And at the very top, you see something that says ANT.
Yep.
Tap on that ANT real fast. This is going to tell you what antennas you should be using.
That's really cool.
So yeah, if you go back from here,
Uh-huh.
so I think the X in the upper left, this is now going to say, hey, look, we ran a scan. Your scan is really good looking. We want to use these numbers, and you're like, yes, confirm. So at the bottom, you're going to hit confirm. And it's going to deploy these frequencies to those transmitters and then pair them to that receiver. And now you're good to go. Now on this screen, you're now on what's called the home devices screen. But you'll notice there's a blinking red light looking at you. It's called Sync All. Let's tap that real fast.
Okay.
This is going to have a pop-up, and this is going to allow you to sync all your devices, your TC1, your TCSL1, your DBTXs, in the future, your DLTX, and your PR2s. You're going to hit that clock real fast next to timecode.
Yeah.
So you can either tap on the clock and edit it manually, or you can hit the actual clock on the far right-hand side next to it, and that'll do your time of day to current time. And if you hit the calendar icon, it will do the date for your U-bits, and then you can pick what format of U-bits you want, whatever frame rate you're shooting for the day, and then hit sync. And it now deployed it to your devices, and you're good to go. And now they're no longer blinking time code.
I was just going to say, so let's bring the transmitter back. Yeah, solid time code, all synced. Did it pick the band because that's what it found them in, or did it quickly look at all the different bands?
It only looked at the current band you're on. If you want to look at other bands, let's look at your phone again.
Yep.
So we'll show you how to use different bands. It goes, hey, you're in the United States. Here's your bands available. Select what band you want to operate in.
Yeah, which I have no reason to change it, but yeah, all right.
So yeah, you can just hit the X in the upper left-hand corner then. And then you have workstations at the bottom.
Okay.
This is where it comes into play. So a lot of people say, I want top-down ergonomics. Really what you're saying is you want to see your view meters for every single thing at the receiver level. This will show it to you here in workstation. So we have 3 different workstations, WTS, which means your wireless transmission signal, and you'll have all of your D2RX receivers with all of their VU meters, frequencies, everything. And if you were to tap and expand, you're going to tap and expand on your screen to view individual details about these units.
Yeah, I can see the meter. And I can, yep, there it is. Okay, this is a lot. This is, Andrew, this is so
It's like Linux. It gives you too much power when you really all you wanted to do is one thing.
No, but I think that I was ready to go on set without the app, right?
And the reason this comes into play is if you own multiple kits. Imagine running one scan and deploying it to 6 transmitters, monitoring all 6 transmitters on one screen. For the average ENG folks, yeah, jumping on one kit and using it, awesome. But you can get overwhelmed real quick. Because of this ergonomics, we're like the phone app should be as native and as flawless as possible. So that's that workstation. So it allows you 3 different workstations.
All right, I do have one question just about the mechanics. You said the M word, mesh. So
yes.
Does that mean that the signal, each sort of device starting with my app is a link in the chain? So like it hits a receiver and then it hits a transmitter and it like then it hits from that transmitter to the next transmitter. Is it really a mesh, or what does that mean?
It is a mesh, and it's a messy mesh because some signals are hub and spoke.
Yes.
So if I'm doing time code, it's hub and spoke. I'm sending it to my master node. That master node, if it has the capability of doing a bit connectify convert, so I'm sending it a time code signal, it receives it via Bluetooth mesh. It then sends it to the bit connectify chip that's then transmitting out to get everything in that area around it time code. So that's latency free. It's because really I can't do latency free all the way through the mesh.
Right.
So I'm having to convert the signal in this mesh to more of a hub and spoke method. When it's doing data control, it's more Bluetooth mesh in the traditional sense.
Got it.
So like a setting, changing gain, that kind of thing, that's all Bluetooth mesh. There's layers to what you need to do because of those latency issues.
Okay. I guess my question is, do the transmitters form part of that mesh so that people, like if somebody's farther away from set than somebody else, are they getting a signal from my phone or are they getting a signal from the nearest node in the mesh?
When it comes to control,
Yeah.
it is kind of a little bit of both. Range, though, is 250 feet.
Okay.
We're doing some crazy things that are layers upon layers of integration here. But what allows for this is nearby devices, 20 devices per phone, and a dual channel receiver still only counts as one device. So what we can do here is you can add your time code, add your other stuff, add these, and in those workstations, it groups it automatically by the device type. So on your phone screen, you're in that workstation for the WST,
Mm-hmm.
I believe,
WTS.
or WTS.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. So that's your wireless.
Mm-hmm.
And if you were to click in, of course, you get your settings. If you were to open up the little drop down next on the far right-hand side, it'll like cascade it open like an accordion. And you'll get all of your little settings. I think it's a little bit further lower. There's like a drop-down arrow.
Oh, yes. Oh, there it is. Yeah.
Yeah. And it'll open it all up, and now you can see individual stuff. You can see how much gain is on each transmitter, each frequency. The name, again, that goes back to that Deity ID. And then there's a record button you can press individually here if you want to. That'll trigger that recorder and kill the transmission. If, however, you want to go to the next workstation over, at the very top you have record, and you'll have all your paired recorders, and at the very top you have global settings. So that little gear icon allows you to change globally all of your bit rates, as well as data like the time and date stamp on the file. And then you can hit the global record button at the top to trigger all your recorders or individual recorders. And again, you can monitor battery life here. The PR2s will show up in this tab only, as well as in the timecode tab, because they don't transmit. So really depends on what kind of device, depends on what kind of thing. So yeah, there at the back end, you now have all your time code, and you have that same sync all button. Now it's just called sync, and it'll do all those global settings too.
Got it. I have to say, just thinking about the practical way that this would work, you know, I was always a little weary of like, oh, I can either transmit or record, because the idea of like having to deal with the actor and stuff, and push record on the pack never really like, or other ways. But this is just completely like, okay, I can monitor the audio, I can make sure there's no obvious clothing noise, you know, and now send it into record without, you know, making a big fuss about it, and deal with all the time code through the app without making a big fuss about it. It's really, it's very, very elegant.
And if you were to clip this to a sound bag, that first screen, what we called the device's home screen, where you added all those devices, you could monitor from there and kind of do all your things from there. But once you're set up and you're up and running and you're on set, jump over to workstations, and now you have your three screens, your wireless, your recorders, your time code.
Yeah.
What more do you want?
It's really clever. There's one thing I do want, which is a feature request, which I find really helpful with digital transmission. And maybe I don't need it in this modulation, but I love the idea of like a quality meter, meaning not just how much RF do I have, but like
how much
errors.
What is your SNR kind of?
Yeah.
And your FEC.
Yeah. It just, you know, I mean, if it's possible, and the only reason it's come up a number of times, especially with digital, where people are hitting the receiver too hard with RF power for digital modulation, and that's causing errors, or they are on
they're not getting enough of the data,
right,
and they're having to fill it in
some
with the error correction.
Yeah, and so just some kind of quality assessment indication. And you know, of course, the beautiful thing is, because the app is so easy, you know, you guys can either take my suggestion and tell me to get stuffed, or it's, you know, there's a framework to implement ideas like that.
Yeah, this is something that could definitely be added down the road.
But this is, Andrew, I can't thank you enough. This is such an eye opener, and my mind is sort of reeling from the different possibilities, the different ways of using it, even like as a straight IFB. I mean, I look, obviously, I've said this before. We're in the business of selling and renting this, but honestly, it's so flexible that I can see it being, even if I already had a whole other ecosystem and invested heavily in it. There's just so many different ways I can think to use this system, like as a throwdown recorder, as a 32-bit throwdown recorder, as a throwdown IFB. Build a whole separate IFB to have a high quality audio path like that, over without worrying about frequency band limitations. It's
Yeah, and the
special.
transmitters can take a line level input.
Mm.
We didn't really go over that, but the transmitters can handle 3-volt bias, so
Mhm.
your consumer lavaliers, 5-volt bias for your professional lavaliers like your Sankins and DPAs, but also line level. So if you're taking a feed from a bag, you don't need to have some special cable with attenuation to go into the transmitter pack to kind of reverse the wireless signal to send it back out. You just send out normal whatever wire you have going into the transmitter, and it just goes, oh, I know what that is. You're going to hit menu,
Mhm.
and then we're going to go to level, and it's going to say mic minus
Oh,
3-volt,
that's too easy.
5-volt, or line.
Yeah, that's too easy. Okay. Um, okay. Wow. So obviously the Deity mics are happy with 3-volt bias, but there's others
They're
that
happy with 3 or 5.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
But there's some that are more picky, and we accommodate.
This is so nice. Okay, I did see. I guess since just for the sake of completeness, I saw a Bluetooth or BT menu.
BT menu. So yeah, that's right below monitor,
Yeah.
and it's the BT menu, and this is to enable it or disable it.
Oh, okay.
Um, This kind of comes into play if you don't want Bluetooth enabled, you want a little bit extra battery life, whatever. It's going to add like an extra 30, 40 minutes of battery life, depending on what your other RF and other settings are. You could also reset it. So if it's been paired to one phone and you now have a new phone, new tablet, and you need to pair your devices over to it, you can hit reset and it'll clear out its memory for Bluetooth pairing and make it available again to be discovered by another Citus app user.
Got it. I see that. And briefly, I just saw the battery menu, and you guys obviously
Oh,
accommodate.
right.
Yeah, you guys accommodate so many different batteries.
So yeah, the Deity AA battery is the lithiums that we actually are putting our name on. The normal alkaline lithium and nickel metal hydride are for one of the more commodity brands out there.
Great, because presumably you know the discharge curve of your own brand, and that's just another happy.
Right. And it just, we know that curve so well that we're able to squeeze out an extra 25, 30 minutes
Mm.
versus a normal lithium just because we're trying to guess their curve versus ours. And it should be noted, if you are using this as a recorder and the battery life is low and it powers itself off, it's also closing out that wave file so you don't lose any data.
Right, right. Andrew, we have covered so much ground. You have been so generous with your time. I really, really appreciate it. When we show this video, we will let you know, and we'll be monitoring for comments and questions, and we'll be answering them as best we can and forwarding them on to you.
I'll take on the 32-bit float haters.
No, it's all one big community.
Oh,
Thank you.
yeah.
Thank you, Andrew. Thank you. And thanks to the crew, Jared and Nate and Joe, for putting this together. And thanks for watching. And again, we'll send those questions, comments. Let us know what you think. And we hope to see you real soon again. Thank you.